Hey, how's it going?
Hi, how are you?
Well, that was super smooth. You're like the first person who joined within 5 seconds. That was awesome.
I was like, I better learn how to do this right now at the beginning.
Well, first of all, it's great to see you. Long time no speak.
I know. It's awesome to see you. I was trying to think what years were we in New York City together?
It was 2010, 2011.
2010, 2011. Wow.
Yeah, it's been a
Decade.
while, but it looks like
Decade
you haven't
ago.
aged at all. So,
Rick, today is my 20th work anniversary.
wow, amazing.
9/11. Yeah, I started at Sloan Kettering in 9/11 2000.
Wow, that's a rough date to start, I guess.
It was the year before the
Yeah.
9/11.
Well, it looks like we got people logging in. I'm just going to start by kind of introducing you so people know what you're all about in case they don't know. Desert is a great friend of mine. I've known her now for, just like we talked about, it's been about a decade. She is the Senior Director of Research and Innovation at UCLA. She's also the Co-Executive Director of UCLA Biodesign. And she is without a doubt a world leader in translating discoveries from the lab over to the clinic. She was recognized by Modern Healthcare as one of this year's top 25 innovators. In 2015, she won the Northwest Women to Watch Award in Life Science. Notably, she launched the UCLA Health Innovation Challenge, which is a seed funding program that pushes innovation ahead. In 2019, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce announced Desert and colleagues as recipients of the prestigious National I-6 Challenge Grant for Innovation Strategies. And prior to her current position, she had leadership roles up at Sloan Kettering, up in New York, just like you heard, and then over at Fred Hutch over at the University of Washington Cancer Center. Desert, it's great having you. You are without a doubt one of the world leaders when it comes to innovation and really taking ideas from the lab to the bench to the clinic. So really glad to have you on here. It's obviously a very critical topic, and we appreciate all your insights.
Thank you so much, Dr. Komatar.
I don't think you called me that ever, but that's funny to hear.
Never. Today for camera. I'll switch to Rick now. But thank you so much. Thank you for asking me to be here. I saw you've had very notable guests, so I'm very appreciative that you wanted to talk to me today.
Well, absolutely. We'll just jump right into it. So, you not only serve as director of the UCLA Health Research Innovation Center, but you're also co-executive director of a program called UCLA Biodesign, which was launched last year in January. Tell us a little bit about this program and what it brings to the table.
Thank you. I'm just thrilled to talk about it because it is unique to Southern California, but Stanford started it many years ago. And the concept was, how do you bring people who are medical doctors together with engineers and with MBAs and train them for, it could be 10 months to 12 months and have them really invent novel medical devices, diagnostics, wearable sensors to benefit our healthcare providers and certainly our patients. So I went to Stanford along with two of my colleagues, and the three of us knew about the program there. When we came down to Los Angeles, we said, hey, Silicon Beach is opening in our back door. Stanford's always had Silicon Valley. How could UCLA really capitalize on the fact that Silicon Beach is there? Google, Medtronic, others. And so we went around to the leaders of our campus. UCLA has a really cool campus, I'm sure, like University of Miami, where the health system sits very adjacent to the engineers and adjacent to our Anderson School of Management. And so went around to each of those deans and asked, could we pilot a 3-year program, bringing MDs, MBAs, and engineers into our health system? And everyone gave us that full support. We started last year with our first cohort of 10. Happy to talk to you about that further, or if there's other questions.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I want to hear about the Biodesign Fellowship,
Okay,
which is
great.
something that you are obviously very proud about.
Yeah, it was extraordinary. So we opened the application with just 4 weeks. So we did a very short application process because we got approval after the top of the new year. And wanted to start in July 2019. We got applicants from all over, including international applicants. And we really wanted 2 teams of 4, but we were wowed really by 10 people. So we accepted 10 people in. We also never anticipated full-on faculty applying to an innovation fellowship. We thought it would be residents and fellows, but because faculty attended, we decided to switch it up a little bit and have them mixed in our teams. And so nobody gets to be in their actual area of expertise because they're all going in as an observer, and the point is really team-based learning. So we have them do a 2-week boot camp. We had industry, government, founders, people who were VCs, angel investors, to really give them a crash course on what it's like from concept to commercialization. And we wanted them to know their resources in our ecosystem. Then they did 3 months of clinical immersion. We picked the area. You might like to know that it was neuro and interventional radiology. Every year that will change, but we felt like there was a space there for us to really go in, observe, fully immersed. So they went into, you had an engineer seeing brain surgery, or you had an MBA person riding in our ambulance doing a ride along, looking for opportunities where we could provide a benefit to the surgeon, to the care provider, to post rehab, to remote monitoring when they go home. And they had an awesome job of like having a notebook and keeping all their concepts. So they came up with hundreds of ideas. And then through design thinking and the biodesign curriculum, there's actually a course book, a huge course book that they go through during the year. And they really learn, how do you take all those ideas and filter them down to the things that were going to have the biggest market penetration? Where would there really be ability to have intellectual property protected, to have the ability to get some seed funding where venture might be interested? You have to connect all these dots. Just because you want to do something for a patient doesn't mean without the partners we can ever do it. There's so many steps. And so proud to report that those 3 teams selected their projects around the time of New Year. They go into, then they have to prototype them. And so we give them the facilities to have access to laboratories, laser cutters, 3D printers, things like that, where they're going to actually have to build and prototype what they're inventing. And then we also teach them how to do a business plan and start pitch competitions. And so a number of our teams throughout the different pitch competitions came in first, they came in third. It was a lot of fun. They gained more money for their projects in addition to what we gave them. And in June, they graduated. So we just graduated them, and we are about to welcome our second cohort that's going to start on Monday in infectious disease, COVID, and pulmonary. So this will be this year's area of focus to invent in.
That is super interesting. You were talking about the crossover, having an MBA, someone who has a business background, getting into medicine to see opportunities for improvement, having an engineer in the operating room. I think that's just absolutely fascinating. And then along those lines, obviously you can't have an interview without talking about COVID. Obviously innovation was huge when COVID hit. How do people double up? How do people help in terms of PPEs and what have you? Tell us how your faculty and your fellows responded to the COVID.
We were up to bat, program, and have the national pandemic and not be up to bat. So they asked us, depending who we had. For instance, we had someone who was an MD, a surgeon, but also was an engineer by background and had gone through our curriculum. So really had a lot of the business principles down. And I asked him to co-lead one of the COVID task forces with me, which is there was a national shortage of swabs. And so we decided as a backup plan that we would validate 3D printed swabs. And so we had to follow FDA regulations to do it according to how it would be if you were submitting it, which was essentially a study where you get 30 patients and you have to go against the regular swab that's already being used, and you have to get as good results, positives and negatives matching the ones that are on the market already. And so he got a lot of experience in coming into leadership positions, giving reports, writing the IRB, fast tracking it through, because the one good thing about COVID is that all of us were working on the same exact issue. And so you were able to move faster because of it, because everyone was singularly focused. So he got a great opportunity to correspond with the FDA to learn about how to do that approval process. And that was a wonderful help to our organization. We ended up validating one of the companies that was much better than the others. And so we ended up validating that particular 3D swab. In addition, we had an MD who also went to Harvard Business School, and he was a consultant. And so due to his consultancy background, he was excellent at helping the hospital think about shortage. And so how do you do the analytics behind your supplies? And, you know, we're a huge organization, 4 hospitals, 180 clinics. So we needed someone like his background to join our informatics team, to join our operational team, and to help us figure it out. And another example is we had an engineer who was joining us into this new cohort, but we knew him, Glenn, and so we supported him with the development of a low-cost ventilator. So for under $1,000, he went to Home Depot, bought all the parts, built one, showed the world, put it up free for everyone to know how to do it, and wanted to make sure if we got into a critical shortage across the globe that anyone could be able to put these together with simple parts and have it work. And so now he's going through our simulation center and about to go into clinical trial to validate his low-cost ventilator. So really a lot of opportunity for innovation fellows in a pandemic to show everybody that, you know, these cross-sectional degrees, or to have these focus areas. With several of our doctors also were engineers and MBAs in a single person. One even was getting his PhD. I mean, they're just phenomenal people that have been thinking about this intersectionality that is needed for speed. And it proved itself, and I hope that it will show leadership when we go to our 3-year pilot, at the end of our 3-year pilot, that we can be secured into a future at UCLA Health for doing this type of innovative work.
It's amazing how COVID is both a blessing and a curse. I mean, you guys obviously responded to the challenge. You had mentioned earlier about Silicon Beach. Mm-hmm. Just tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, obviously everyone knows Valley, but not everyone knows about Silicon Beach.
Yeah.
Can you just go into that a little bit? Because that's a huge resource for you guys in terms of funding and opportunities.
Huge. I hope to, you know, I want to see what's going to happen. When we rolled out Biodesign, we decided to go after a federal grant from the Department of Commerce, which we were awarded because we wanted to essentially say, this should be another hub of innovation. Boston is one, San Francisco's one, you know, Los Angeles and Southern California really has a lot of the talent. And as you mentioned, Silicon Beach, little parts, little components of all the Silicon Valley company are literally coming and opening along the beach. I think one, just because it's an awesome life, you know, there is no beach in Silicon Valley. So I think, you know, it's so much so that there is a plane that goes morning and that people commute. It's a strange reality that people really in where tech and med tech merge, and they're right in our backyard. So we decided to write a grant, get 30 partners, both internal and external, across all the sectors that we need to create speed to market so that we can help patients. Because bottom line, we're all here to help a patient feel better or eliminate or cure their illness. And so we need the major players. So what we did is we went to government. We went to our mayor, who has tweeted our program out. We went to our governor. We went to all of the big tech companies or tech companies starting to merge in medicine. And we asked them, if we got a federal grant, would they do in-kind services for our faculty and for our fellows so that we could more easily translate what we're building and bring it to the world. And so we got those 30 partners. We applied for the grant and we were awarded this federal I-6 challenge grant. And we are creating an ecosystem across academia, government, venture, and private. So it should be a nice way for all of us to know each other. And the goal is not to keep everyone in Los Angeles. For instance, one of our fellows just graduated and he's going to New York City. The goal is to help patients. So if we can create an ecosystem, yet another ecosystem that's successful, then people can kind of go all over the world and bring these lessons with them and create these hubs across the country.
So tell us a little bit, because you had mentioned about this challenge grant. Obviously, you guys feed off of collaboration, but obviously having competition elevates everyone. So tell us about the challenge grant, how these people compete and how the end result actually improves.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So the word innovation is so big, and being over innovation for a health system means so many things to different people. So part of it is med tech, and that's really what I'm focusing on right now is medical technology development. But innovation to others could be, it could really mean like process and systems improvement. It could be early adoption of a technology into your health system so your patients are benefiting. So we wanted to cast a very wide net to our community. And we wanted to start an innovation challenge where our doctors, our nurses, our clinical people could apply, but also our patients, our caregivers, and our community could also say their ideas. So as an example, Los Angeles is so diverse, but when you went and looked at our menu for ordering food from inpatient, it's not in all the languages. So there was a non-employee that suggested to us in our innovation challenge to do a multilingual ordering app. And we're like, duh, of course we should. But sometimes you need that perspective of like, where could we be more innovative? And you get it right from your own patient. So it was really cool to involve them. And we were able to deploy that and have IT do it, all the way to, we had doctors working on metabolism and cancer, and they needed funding to really, go through their ideology process to be able to shore up some future grants. We believed in the project. We also had people who wanted to be able to do a 3 wishes program. So for people who are terminal or end of life and they have a wish, how could we fulfill that for them? How could we be innovative? And in a time like COVID, it was good that we had started to do some of that hard work. So we had already deployed an iPad program. So long before, like right when everything happened, we already had an iPad in every room so that patients who are seeing a doctor, that doctor could round with the family. And so when the restrictions came and you couldn't bring a visitor in, the fact that we had that innovation challenge, the fact that we're always thinking about how to improve our quality for our patients allowed us to lead in that way, that right away we were able to announce that all of our patients could have an iPad program. So we wanted to open it to the community. It ended up being that we have 10 med tech projects that we are funding. One is really cool. It's on vaginal drug delivery. So that hasn't changed in 100 years. It's like sloppy creams is how we deliver medicine. And 2 of our GYNs were like, we have a great idea. We connected them to the head of bioengineering, who focuses more on dental, but you could see some similarities of how those body parts might operate and how you could deliver medicine. So they have a cool project going on, all the way to a plastics project that can get closer to the eye than Botox. So we kind of run the gamut of what's interesting to people and try to support them based on, evidence-based research and where we think that they would have opportunity to penetrate the market or transform patients' lives.
It's super cool how you guys are taking what seems super basic, but no one's ever really thought of it or pushed it ahead. You take it, you support it, and then you take it to the next level. COVID obviously has exposed a lot of disparities in healthcare, race, ethnicity, income. How are you guys addressing diversity and inclusion within your program?
Yeah, great question. Totally timely. So we are about to roll out our next innovation challenge. And as of last night, I got the funding I needed from our president, Johnny Spiso, and CEO of our hospital system, so that we can have a track specifically on health equity. And so I've partnered with our acting chief inclusion, equity, and diversity officer, and also a faculty member who just is really impressive in this space. And the 3 of us, along with our administrative fellow this year, are about to roll out a health equity challenge. And so it was great putting that together to think about, how are we going to judge people? We have to make sure that we're working with the patients that we're talking about. So if we're working with a vulnerable population, that they're involved. And the fact that we had patients involved last time led us to say this time again, we will have patients and community members involved in the decisions we make. Really interesting points of view are, everyone's so excited about telehealth. We used to have 400 telehealth visits in a month. Now we have over 60,000. There's an explosion of telehealth. But when you start to think about our communities that are impoverished, how do they do a telehealth visit? They can't do it. And so when you think about the divide of who gets medicine, you start to put in a digital health component, that divide might very well get further and further. So it's really important that those of us who are excited by innovation, like myself, we want to encourage it. We want to have adoption, that we figure out these gaps. And so we want to make sure right away, year 2 of our innovation challenge, that this is a major focus. We did focus on it in our last year, and we did give funding for that. So for instance, we have a real-time multilingual translational app for our pediatric patients that our peds doctors wanted. It just wasn't good enough to do these like phone calls in for translation and then someone's calling you back. So you want real-time translation, particularly when it's a scary moment for a child who doesn't speak the language or the family doesn't speak the language. So we had components of it, but now it's going to be its own track. And I think it's going to show both what we're interested in as a health system, but we're going to put our money where our mouth is. So it's a good challenge to us to actually invest in our community. Calls. Okay. So
right.
We have to think about how to impact our communities. And I think this challenge is going to be awesome for it. In addition, we did do a lot for COVID. So I just put a video together for Vizient, and we were showing what we did do for the unsheltered. So we helped erect 15 community centers for the unsheltered to have health services during the time of COVID. We also put together through our family medicine group, they put together a ton of online resources for vulnerable communities, including teens, certain ethnic groups that we have in our region. So it's very important to us. So I'm glad that you asked the question, and I'm glad that we're doing things that we can be pointed at to see how impactful we are.
Now, it seems very cutting edge to have an entire center devoted towards innovation. What other universities have what UCLA has?
When I started this job and started to do some of the social media, I definitely started getting phone calls. So there are many looking at what we're doing now and wanting to replicate. So New York Presbyterian, there was UC Davis. I mean, there's a lot of places that might have a person or two, but people are excited about how to really focus it. And as you know, when you're in these matrix organizations, you really do need the support of your executive leadership team to make the impact. Otherwise, everything's just in a very small level. And so by Johnny's hiring me into the executive leadership team, the person before me never sat at that level. And so I'm right there at the table, with our COO, with our CEO, with our chief medical officer, our chief nursing officer, our chief strategy officer. And so when we want to do something, we're able to do it collectively. So at other organizations, I'm not sure that it is in that leadership space, but they certainly have centers of innovation. Many do. But I'd like to see them really elevated. So many of us, especially you're right at that cross section of like, you're using technology, you're a doctor, you're an innovator, you want to go do something. You need support. And I've dedicated my career to supporting faculty because I believe that one of my gifts is being the connector, being the communicator, but the faculty are brilliant and I'm just here to support them. And in doing so and coming to UCLA Health and being at this level, I realized I really never had worked with nurses as much as I had doctors. And at UCLA, the fact that our CEO is a nurse and was a nurse, it opened me up that there's so many others that are so responsible for how innovation occurs that we opened UCLA Biodesign to nurses this year, and it's our plan going forward that we will have nurses right alongside doctors in some of these innovation programs and getting their names on these patents and being part of the waterfall for invention royalties. Like, they're very deserving to be part of it. And so this new role for me allowed me to expand my thinking. And I think it's a wonderful thing that UCLA has, for the first time ever, a non-male, non-doctor at the helm.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly amazing what you guys have done. You guys are the example, I think, for everyone else to follow. I truly believe that every major university needs to have a center of innovation because that's how medicine is going to move forward, how technology is going to move forward. Just like you were saying about neurosurgery, technology, I mean, I can definitely tell you that as a surgeon, when you have an idea, and many of us have ideas all the time about how to improve what we're doing, the two main roadblocks to anyone going from an idea to reality is funding and the regulations. Mm-hmm. And what you guys do is truly amazing. Take us step by step. Let's say one of your neurosurgeons has an idea. Hey, look, I want to use a different tool, a different microscope, but something different in the OR. That neurosurgeon has that idea. How do they go to the next step with you guys?
Mm-hmm. I had that exact thing happen. Yeah, so when faculty are thinking about ideas, I don't know, they come to me in different stages, but if if they're at the place where they really think they have something that can be patented, what we did when I first joined the organization, I think this is a great thing for all campuses to do. Our head of our tech transfer office, which changed its name to Technology Development Group, to show you they're not about tech transferring, they're about technology development, which shows the community like where we are now. We want our hands-on clinicians being our inventors because they are right there at the front lines. So we have an opportunity that took some work where we went to the different deans and to the chancellor, and Amir Nyberg led a lot of that so that we could create a fund of innovation. So our faculty, when they're at or near time of patent, they can apply for a $200,000 award of support. And we essentially do, have you ever seen Shark Tank? It's not quite like that, but that concept, we bring in our sharks, but people like to call them dolphin tanks now so that it shows that it's supportive and not anti. But we bring in industry experts, we bring in venture people to basically hear, we have so many ideas, we can only support so many. So the best way we can do that for me is competition. And so we have our greatest ideas pitch to our outside community who would be the eventual, the person we license the technology to, or be the eventual person they're gonna have to go ask money from. Ask them now, what do you think of this idea? And depending what their feedback is, we are able to incredibly support $200,000 awards to clinical faculty and research faculty who have that technology. And not only do they get the money, because that's one part, they really need the help of business development. And so we have a new ventures group at our technology development group where they hire people with background in this space, and they help the faculty actually think through the business strategy of their technology so that we're doing both simultaneously. They're developing it and we're figuring out the regulatory path. And that regulatory path is so important that you have some strategy behind it, because it can be daunting of how long it's going to take you to get out to market. So that's what we do. I think anyone can do it at any number. Like even if your number was $5,000 to $50,000, which is another competition I have. I have a track for less money for people really at the ideation stage. Our faculty are so appreciative of $5,000 or $10,000 to get it somewhere. And the reason that is so important is the only way I have any dollars is due to philanthropists who believe in the mission. And so that's an important thing as people are watching or wanting to replicate this. You have to get your advocacy from your community and get people to give a $5,000 check or a $10,000 or a $50,000 or a $20 million, whatever it's going to be, whatever it is. In medicine, you can make an impact. So for $5,000, you can already prototype something, and you can have a working prototype enough to show your IP attorneys what you're trying to do, to show an investor what you're trying to do. So it's so important that we share our success stories and that we tell our community what we're working on, and to get people excited, because we have mental health issues. We're on a campus with depression. We have things for women's health. You have things, think about COVID and pregnancy. Like we have someone working on that, but it's so rare. So there's so many spaces where we're being innovative, and we need the support of our community, because the only way you can eventually get a grant is to show your data. How do you ever show your data if there's no money to get you any data? And so we have to first rely on philanthropy, and first rely on a great idea, give them a little bit of money, let them get some data, and then they can go after the federal grants and the big awards to continue it. And so that's one of the paths we try to do, is like really think from beginning to end. What does that look like? How do we share it? How do we have them help have those opportunities to pitch, to pitch to a donor? That's something where you need an executive to help you, because how do you even know who that donor is? And so we try to really pass the baton on each part that will get us at the end a technology that the world can benefit from.
Now, you mentioned how onerous the whole regulatory process is, and I can tell you it is brutally onerous. Do you guys have a way to fast track that, or you guys just have enough people working that it just happens faster?
Yeah, not just because I'm saying that this path is fast. I will say what I help is just some. So some people are getting the support. We have so many faculty I'll never get to, never meet. So part of what we do is the educational component. FDA, there's no way to really, in the time of a pandemic, it's been a little different, but typically, the FDA there is, like you mentioned, before a blessing and a curse. They're really there to protect us. And there's a reason why we want them to validate a medical device before it goes into mom. So that part's really important. So the only way you can really, you can't bypass the FDA, nor do we want to, but you want to be able to move strategically as fast as possible. And really the only way to do that is to have someone who's either worked at the FDA or a consultant. And so UCLA has hired Marlene Barrow, who used to work there. So we have our own in-house person who worked at the FDA. I am lucky enough that one of our new biodesign fellows also worked at the FDA. So we have people who know the steps for the devices and who know who to call. And so that's really key. Investigator going it alone would go quite slowly trying to figure it out. So for any investigator listening now, they should find out either from their clinical trials people, you know, there's people you could ask, is there an FDA expert at your own institution?
Yeah. Well, you know, as we're wrapping it up, where do we go from here, Desert? What's the next step for you? What do you envision in the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I'm always thinking about what is the future of medicine. And, you know, people were worried for us as a health system with companies coming into the space and being disruptors and opening telehealth clinics or opening something at the mall. And I was like, you know, I work for the patient. I'm not fearful of the future, whatever direction it goes in. You know, I feel like there's so much to work on. There's enough room for all of us to be in this space. I'm all for a startup to come in and be a disruptor in some space, but you know, is the future of a hospital an operating room? I think about that a lot. You know, our surgeons are not going anywhere, but technology is here to stay and maybe totally transform what we're doing. So it is fun to think about 5 years, but I like to think about 20 years. You know, what does that look like? I bet it's unlike anything it is now. And so I want to be right around the recent grads and the old timers, you know, put them all in a room. Like, where are we headed? And let's invent together and let's figure out ways to help those that really we haven't. You know, I think there's a lot of communities in our country that we've really failed to help, and it's our responsibility to make sure we include them. We're privileged enough to work in this space and to have the purview that we do. So I hope to support innovators who are kind and caring people who care about humanity and care about transforming the lives of our patients. So that's what I'll continue to do in the next several years. We have an open call for applications now. I saw somebody on there say, can a pharmacist apply? And yes, you can. We will take any clinical care background. We will take an engineer, but we'll take designers too. So design is really important in the aesthetics and in the adoption of patients using a technology. And like I mentioned, we're already open to both doctors and nurses.
Desert, it is absolutely, you know, inspiring to hear you talk. Your view on innovation, I wish everyone had it. And I think everyone here who was commenting, I think someone said Desert rocks, and I totally agree. So all of our audience really appreciates your time. Keep doing what you're doing, truly inspirational. And it's great catching up. Great to see you. Okay,
you too, Rick. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing, and thank you for saving lives. I'm so glad you're a brain surgeon. You're amazing.
All right, Desert. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for being on here.